Good afternoon, brothers and sisters, and welcome once again to the Self-Improvement Basis for Community Development Talk Show. I'm your weekly host, Brother James Muhammad, and I'm honored to have back on the show for the third time my brother, the Holly Springs representative of the Nation of Islam, Brother Student Minister Abdul Shahid Muhammad. And I think officially we can say you're a co-host now, my brother.
Almost, but thanks again for having us, Brother
Yes,
James.
sir.
Always a pleasure to be here, man.
I asked my brother to come back on the show because for the last few weeks you have been doing a series on the family.
Right.
And you titled the series, The Original Family Unit. And as I began to listen to you, and other day I was watching the news, and I believe it was the sister who's over the Memphis City or Shelby County school system, and she stated, we have a serious parenting issue here. And I thought it would be, very important to have you back on the show so you can share with the guests and the greater Memphis area your approach to this problem as it relates to the parenting issue, the issue with the youth. So what was the inspiration behind the lecture series, The Original Family Unit? And I know the first lecture you gave started with God.
Yes, sir. Well, once again, brother, thank you for allowing us back on. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness to the oneness of God, the oneness of His prophets, the oneness of the scriptures that were revealed through them. We thank Him for Moses and the Torah, or the Old Testament. We thank Him for Jesus and the Gospel, and we certainly thank Him for Muhammad and the Holy Quran. Peace be upon them all. Once again, to you and your audience, Assalamu alaikum. That's the Semitic language of all of the prophets. It simply means, may peace be unto you. Well, brother, what inspired me, man, was, in the process of building a nation, family is the cornerstone of it. God Himself is the bedrock. God Himself and His establishment of the original family is the basis upon which we build our family. The lecture series that came to my mind, brother, was the original family unit. Because original meaning from the beginning, that which is original does not depend on anyone else's idea. God is the originator of the idea of family. And He is the author of family. And then unit, I use the word unit because it's mathematical. We are taught that Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam. You can see that in the nature of God's creation. Everything in creation is mathematical, brother. Everything is mathematical in nature. So the original family unit, as I stated to the audience in the first and second part of our talk, I reminded us, if we think about it, a family is not a traditional thing. Because, they like to use the phrase, the traditional family. No, the family is a mathematical thing. It's actually a mathematical formula that's designed to allow the human being to reproduce his or herself according to the law, statutes, and commandments and standard laid down by He who originated family. So when we see the fall of the black family, I shouldn't say fall, it's really the destruction, because it was an intentional thing. The black family has been under attack, brother, since we've set the soles of our feet on American, quote unquote, American soil in North America. So if we're going to repair our families, we got to go back to the origin. And we got to understand that family is deeper than tradition. It's mathematical. And I think once we understand that deep and broad and deep enough, then we'll be able to begin to get a grasp on some of the problems we're faced in the black community, man.
All right. For those who are just now tuning in, we are Facebook Live. So if we make any mistakes, please charge it to the mind and not the heart. And we're trying to approach this subject matter with respect and sensitivity.
Yes.
Because this is a serious problem, the black family crisis. And I asked my brother to come on the show because he's beginning to deal with this issue as it relates to us here in Memphis, particularly, and the surrounding areas.
And Holly Springs.
In Holly Springs.
That's really where I'm at. I mean, the problem is pervasive everywhere.
That's
I don't
right.
care how big the community, I don't care how big the city or how small. You see the same patterns. You see frayed families. You see dysfunctional family. And of course, the first dysfunctional family, you read about it in Genesis, Cain and Abel, Adam and Eve. There's dysfunction there. So, but just want to say we're definitely North Mississippi, and of course we extended to the Memphis area too.
Now, you mentioned slavery. We can't separate these statistics that we read about in the condition of the black family from the process of slavery, what we went through. A lot of people like to say, well, oh, that would happen back then.
Yeah, and people accuse us of trying to live there. No, it's not about living there, brother. It's about understanding that it is what has happened that will inform us as to what is happening now. You don't read of any other ethnic group of people or group of people, period, talking about forgetting about what's happened to them in their history, especially things that set them at naught. You don't hear any other group of people talk like that but us. So when you mention it, we are accused of taking a victim mentality or posture. It's not about taking a victim mentality or posture. It's about making an accurate assessment and doing a pathological assessment of what are the psychological maladies and what's the the psychological maladies we suffer from, and what's the origin of it. There's something in epigenetics that the scientists have studied. And they have concluded by studying Holocaust victims and the offspring of Holocaust victims. They said that some of them exhibit symptoms of, what do they call it when you...
Post-traumatic stress?
Yes, post-traumatic stress. And they said it can be passed down through the genes. Well, you mean to tell me that if that's true where those who suffered the Holocaust are concerned, which happened over a 6-year period, what about 310 years of slavery? Then another 100 years or more of Jim Crow and segregation. And then we're still dealing with it in 2024, the ghosts of it. I mean, when you read about in 2021, I think it happened, what happened to Rasheem Carter in Taylorsville, Mississippi? They found this young 25-year-old boy dismembered. He went to the police for protection. And everybody want to act like, well, we still don't know what really happened. Come on now. And it's happening all over the country. You're finding black men hung in the woods, and particularly in the Deep South. So what is the psychological effect of this over time? So you absolutely cannot dismiss what has happened from slavery through Jim Crow and even up to now. You can't dismiss it when we are making an assessment of how to address the problem and the psychological effect of what black people have experienced.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense because when you go to a doctor and they ask you to come 30 minutes early, why? Because they want to fill out some forms.
Get that history.
And a part of those forms, they want to get the history.
Your medical history.
And a few of those questions ask, did your parents or your mother or your father suffer from these diseases?
Right.
And they want to get a historical picture of you and your family to draw a conclusion.
Right.
So, but what about the mental sickness that we have suffered? So there's a direct relationship between what we see in our community today and what happened and what is still happening to us in America, true?
I would say definitely, brother. I mean, it's been proven. You know, there are those who want to be dismissive of it, but something like stud farms, you know, they had stud farms where black men, you know, healthy, strong black men that slave owners saw fit for reproducing a division of slave labor, you know, because of his loins, you know, that he thought, like you see, a good, strong horse. That's how they saw us. They compared us to horses, okay? Well, that population of men, what was the psychological effect on them whereby they were not able to father what they brought into the world and felt no tie to it, no sense of responsibility for the lives that they brought into the world? It was just like breeding, animals. So there was no human connection there. So what was the mentality of that man, and how far into the future was it projected through his seed? Whereby you have men with the mentality of, well, I never felt the need or even the responsibility to care for what I bring here. And you see a lot of that amongst us. So where does that come from? It's deeper than socioeconomic factors. Of course, those are factors, poverty and all of the other things that go into it. But something in our history in terms of what has happened to us, brother, plays a role, I think, based on what the scholars have researched and found.
Yes, sir. I see some people tuning in on Facebook. Yes, I have my brother back, brother student minister Abdul Shahid Muhammad, here Facebook Live. And today we're discussing the Black family crisis as it relates to his lecture series, The Original Family Unit. God, family,
nation,
and nation.
In that order.
In that order. Now, when you start dealing with the God factor, some people are like, no, because they feel like you're stepping into their traditions. Why did you start with the God factor? Why is it so important to start with the originator when dealing with this issue? Because if I go to see some psychologists as relate to family issue, they're not going to start with the God factor.
They're not. No, they're
so
not.
Why is it important for you to start with the God factor, and what is the effect in this healing process?
Yes, sir. Because he is the origin of all knowledge. Regardless to what people call God, or by what name they call him, whether they call him Allah, whether they call him, excuse us, audience, whether they call God Allah, whether they call him Jah, Jehovah, Yahweh, the names of God, we don't argue over that, because as spiritually mature people, you should understand that God made himself known according to the language and culture of the people amongst whom he raised his prophet, messenger, or warner. So, of course, we should understand that. At least we should. Now, it's important because he is the author. He is the originator of it. He understands and knows best what he created. He understands and knows best why he established that a family is a male and a female, and those two reproduce other human beings. That's the formula, okay? Well, we come and we disturb the formula because what God has set in motion and what he originated don't fit how we feel. We don't base it on science, or we don't base it on the reality of our creation. A lot of the attitudes and behaviors with regard to the relationship between male and female and sexual orientation and all of these things is based on how people feel. And that's just it. Now they want to use some, I'm not going to even give that, I'm not going to even dignify that part.
Well, we got to get to the truth today.
We live in a time, brother, where legislators are sitting at the highest level of government. I remember watching something with Senator Ted Cruz. I think it was a Senate Judiciary Committee, and they were wrangling over men going into women's sports. And they're sitting, these are college educated people from Ivy League schools, asking the question, is there a difference between a man and a woman? Brother, you learn that in preschool. So you got highly intelligent people who have been elected to public office at federal levels, sitting and asking a question that we learned in preschool. Oh, she's just telling me she's on her way. That they learned in preschool. So now we have adults that, don't seem to know the difference between a man and a woman. So the mentality in the world today, brother, is such that we have to go back to the origin. We got to get back to the basics. And we have to speak up you know, as it relates to those who want what God has set in motion and what God originated, or if you don't want to call him God, what the originator created, established, the Almighty, whatever name you want to use. We know and understand that when all of this flesh and blood is gone and your remains are just bones, the bones will still be able to tell you the gender of the person. Just the bones. So you can't change that. What we feel and what comes from within in terms of emotion cannot change the reality of the gender that we are assigned when we were born into this world. So the family formula has been so disturbed that the family is now disturbed. You know, and we in the Nation of Islam, brother, the cornerstone of a nation is a family. So if you bust up the family, brother, you can't build a nation.
Okay, now, for those who say, well, I don't believe in God.
That's fine.
Take the God factor out of it.
That's fine.
But do you believe in nature?
You believe in science? You don't have to call it God. I mean, the empirical data alone is sufficient for any intelligent person to conclude that the proper way that a family should be constructed is between a man and a woman. You know, because, you know, I listened at, I was watching something, I think it was, I ran across it. What's my man? He came out of Dr. Phil. That was a gentleman on his program. This man had a bob cut like a female, had on lipstick, eyeshadow, nails manicured like a woman's nails would be manicured. And he had a full beard. And he said that he's a woman. And he's asking the question, well, what defines a woman? And they talk about cis men, and they are even saying and arguing that men can have babies now. That's just how, you know, far off truth in reality that the minds of some people have gone. And if you contest it, they go as far as to call you ignorant. And we'll get hostile. It's almost to the point where you don't even have the right to disagree with them, you know, without being attacked. They have the right to disagree with God's origin or his original family unit. But if you disagree with what they call the modern family or their formula for what they think a family is, all of a sudden you hate them because you don't agree with them. And to me, that's insanity.
Well, brother, it seems like we're trying to make God's law agree with our desires.
Exactly what we're doing. That's exactly.
So we're willing to change the law. We're willing to change the religion. We're willing to change the basics of nature or try to change it to fit our lower desires.
Yes, sir. That's exactly what's happening. I mean, the Holy Quran, if I may quote this scripture, it says, there is no altering Allah's creation. I mean, you can do all that you want. There's no altering the original family unit. You can tamper with it. You know, you can redefine it according to whatever is in your mind, but that's not going to dismiss the fact and the reality that if you want to reproduce a healthy family, God's formula for family is best. Now, you can have all of the alternatives that you desire, but the end of it, I mean, I told a brother once, I gave it a very simplistic, you know, response. I said, I tell you what, those who are males who want to be with males, give them a part of the world and send them all there and let them live and do what it is that they desire with regard to their sexual orientation. For women that feel that way, give them that. Keep the two separate. No men where the women are, no women where the men are, ever. And let's come back in 100 years and see who's left. Very simple. Because at the end of the day, at some point, reality is going to set in because the population will begin to diminish over time. Somebody is going to say, well, how do we keep our society going? We need a woman. And the women are going to say, how do we keep our society going? We need a man. Well, then may not go get a man, well, I just need to use in vitro. Well, you still need a man at the end of the day.
So you better go call Tyrone, huh? Brothers and sisters, you're just now tuning into the Self-Improvement Basis for Community Development Talk Show. I'm sitting here with my brother, student minister Abdul Shahid, who is the Nation of Islam representative in the city of Holly Springs, Mississippi. And really, we're talking about the black family crisis, but this can go so deep. And we're trying to deal with the origin of the problem and approach this subject matter with the utmost sensitivity. We don't want to offend anybody. But we got to really talk now and really deal with the issues in our community. And one day we just got to throw our hands up and say, I surrender, Lord. I'm tired. I'm tired of going in and out of jails. I'm tired of all of these issues, divorce, and get back to the original law of God. So now, dealing with this God factor, brother, it's interesting that you said that because, I shared that with a brother once before too. I said, you don't have to hate anybody. You don't have to argue with anybody. Just leave them alone. Leave them alone. Because in the book of Genesis, when God created you and I, he instilled in us the law of what? Self-preservation.
This first law of nature.
What happens when we tamper with this law of self-preservation?
Well, the law of self-preservation will supersede in every law of life when the existence of your life or your existence is threatened. You notice how people remember God when trouble comes into their life, especially when the kind of trouble is a possible threat to their life or to life itself. People remember God, brother. So the law of self-preservation demands that you respond in such a way to preserve the life that you have. So I don't care what your emotional preferences are. When the life is threatened, you're going to do something. You're going to do that which you believe and know by nature will preserve your existence. That's just a fact.
And it's interesting because it's interesting that you made that statement because you and I are first responders.
Yes, sir.
And we've seen these so-called wannabe gangbangers. And when you actually see the life leave someone and they know it's leaving them, you see the law of self-preservation kick in.
Yes, sir.
You can look in their eyes. You can see how they grab your hand. You can see them gasp for life because it's not natural to want to leave God's planet.
No, you see the fear in their eyes, bro.
You see the fear in their eyes. Even those who try to commit suicide and don't do it properly.
And they still here, thought it would be like, and it don't go that way.
The heart wants to keep beating.
Yeah.
You want to bring in air. Something is telling you those involuntary organs, they don't want to shut down.
No, the body has a fail-safe mechanism. It has a self-preservation aspect to the internal or the involuntary organs. That's why when you smoke for the first time, you cough because your lungs know the smoke that's in your lung. That's not natural. That's foreign. But the mind has the ability to make the lungs submit. Just like people are using the mind to make the natural order of things, the natural function of self with regard to the sexes, submit to the desire. And that's that's a sign of how powerful the human being is. And our ability to make, our involuntary organs in the natural way that we should live. We can make our nature submit to the desire of the mind.
Okay. Now, the black family crisis, when you look at the black family, particularly us, we in America, you have to approach it differently.
Yes, sir.
Because something happened to us.
Absolutely. As we were talking about earlier, brother, the slave experience. But the black family, as I stated earlier, has been under attack and the specific component of the family that has been under attack that I think we oftentimes overlook is the woman. If you look right now, it's women's sports that are under attack. You don't see women trying to get a sex change to become men. You see men changing to become women. So there's the female that has been under attack, and the most attacked female on the planet is the black female. She is the most unprotected, disrespected. She feels less safe than any other female on the earth. Go and talk to her sister. She does not feel safe. And she is the most disrespected. As a matter of fact, in the talk, I pulled it up. I did a little research, as I always do. I like to start with what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said and what the Honorable Louis Farrakhan has said. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad writes in his book, Message to the Black Man, on page 58. He says this, he says, until we learn to love and protect our women, we will never be a fit and recognized people on the earth. He said, the white people here among you will never recognize you until you protect your woman. The brown man will never recognize you until you protect your woman. The yellow man will never recognize you until you protect your woman. The white man will never recognize you until you protect your woman. And the thing about protecting or having the ability to protect our women, we cannot protect, and I'm going to get in trouble right now, what we cannot control. Now they say, well, I ain't fixing to be controlled by y'all. Well, the thing about control, it is not something that's forcefully imposed. Because as men create the environment. We're the world builders. When we build a world or create an environment starting at your home, when you create an environment that you are the author and the ruler of, where the woman in your life feels safe in your company, safe under your care, then that's a level of control. Because a good woman, or a woman that's confident enough that knows that the man in her life got her, then she doesn't mind in most instances. I mean, of course, you're going to have some disagreements, but for the most part, she does not mind allowing that man in her life to make decisions where she's concerned, as long as those decisions are reasonable, just, and in the best interest of the woman in your life. Sisters don't mind that. But if we as men are not builders, if we don't create the environment, we go into her environment that she created. And that's why you have a lot of domestic violence, brother. Brothers live with their girlfriend. She bought the house, okay? She's got the mortgage or she's got the lease. It's her car. She's paying the note. She put the gas in it. She let you take her to work in her car, like baby boy. You drop her off at work in her car. Okay, that's the setup. So when a disagreement arises in the relationship,
She put rank on you.
she pours rank. And she started talking to you like you her child. Because according to the way the family structure is, it's not the original unit. Because the book says men are the maintainers of women, not the other way around. She starts talking to you like you're one of her children, because for all intents and purposes, you are. If she's the breadwinner, she pay all the bills and the lease and the mortgage in her name, the car's in her name, she's got the insurance, and you ask her for $5 to put in her car. Well, you need a lot more than $5 nowadays, but you get what I'm saying. So, but that's the dynamic. That's one of the prevailing dynamics in the black community in particular, brother. So, our women have to go to self-defense classes, just to protect themselves, because they are always accosted on some level.
Brother, a man came to America in 1930 named Master Farad Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
And he taught the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he brought with him a cure for the family, for the female, and for the male. He put us in classes to teach and train us and to undo what slavery had done to us. Why do you think it's so important for our people now, as we speak on this black family crisis, they need to focus on the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and what he brought to us as a community, particularly dealing with the family structure.
Well, I think it's important, and I'll say this: whether you become a Muslim or join the nation of Islam or not, it's really not relevant. The formula that God gave him, you know, in terms of the medicinal value of it, that addresses the psychological and emotional illnesses of black people. What the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was given is a surefire cure. It's well documented. The Nation of Islam was seen, and he was called by many in America the most powerful black man in America. He had the most organized and disciplined group of people ever seen to come up from among black people. Doesn't mean there were not other greats that stood up and did great work, but they singled out the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his work in that he produced the most disciplined and organized group that they had ever seen. Well, what do you mean discipline? See, he brought black men back to the responsibility of husband and father, the roles, or I don't want to use role, the assignment, if you will, that's mathematical in nature that God gave man. See, when we act in accord with our nature, brother, we're acting in accord with the mathematical equation that God established that is called family. So you will always get the right answer when you do the math right. When you do the math wrong, you're going to get the wrong answer. So the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad were family, and men and women, and the classes that we go to, and the things and the standards that we are asked to live up to as men, and understanding that the prize is the woman. I mean, by God, brother, we live in a world today where now women are getting on one knee and proposing to men. And we think that's something to marvel at. So what is it? What's going on in the mind of some of our women? And this is throwing no shade, but, ain't something wrong with that? When if you truly understand the value of the female. Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, she is the field from which we produce our nation. Why do you compare her to a field? It is from land that everything that sustains life comes. The first assignment or job man was given in Genesis was agricultural in theme, and it had to do with animal husbandry. Well, why Well, the earth is what sustains life. Well, the woman is like earth. Out of her, will you put a seed in her like you put a seed in the ground? The ground brings forth that which sustains life. Well, she brings forth that which perpetuates and extends us into the future. So just like you have to protect crops, you have to produce good food, you have to have rich soil, you have to have the right conditions to get the best food. See, now they got GMO food because they've corrupted the soil.
And we got GMO families.
Got GMO. They've corrupted the female, brother. So we're bringing forth GMO people. People who are void of the spiritual, the spirit of God, just like food is deprived of the nutrients. The seed is not even in the grapes anymore. So it has no nutritional value. Likewise, our people coming into a world that are not of any benefit as it relates to the evolving cause of human progress. So each generation, brother, is getting worse. Our children are acting out, committing the kind of acts that we as adults didn't think of. I know my age group. Some of the things children do today, I wouldn't even think. So you got 10 and 11 and 12-year-old boys prowling the street with Dracos. That's a type of gun, in case you didn't know. And Glocks, 11 and 12, thinking about carjacking people. So, I mean, that's, I can go on and on and on, brother, but we have to take a look as black people and get back to where God would have us to be. And if you think God is antiquated, that's cool. Because if you do, what God has established in terms of the formula for family, it's going to remain. But all these alternatives, you see, they're slowly dying out.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll soon be gone. And then you'll have left God's way. So you're going to try everything else. As we say, God's way come, but we say Islam comes after everything else has failed. You can actually say also, God's way comes after everything else you try has failed.
Beautiful. Brothers and sisters, if you're just now tuning in and you're Facebook Live, we're discussing the Black family crisis as it relates to my brother student minister Abdul Shahid's lecture series, the original family unit, God, family, then nation. And I love what you talked about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his method. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad started with God to begin to heal us of some of our ills that we learned from slavery. He didn't start with their universities, with their scholars. He went back to the originator because we are the original people. He went back to the original diagram of the family and of the man and of the woman.
Yes, sir.
So his way is successful, but I'm reminded of the scripture said when Jesus come, he will give you life, but he will give you more abundantly. You said you can try the alternative way, but the question is, how long do you want to live?
Yes. And
because
how long will it last?
the alternative way shortens your lifespan.
It definitely does.
And they took from us the love of self. And when you really love yourself, you want to live. Even if you can't live 1,000 years, but you want to live through your seed, and you want your seed to be prosperous.
Yes. Yes, sir.
So now we're so buried in our desires, we don't care about carrying on the family name. You remember when it was an honor to carry your father's name?
Yes, sir.
The father wanted a son first. Then he wanted the son to bring home a beautiful wife. Then he wanted grandchildren. Now we don't care about any of that.
No, those things, unfortunately.
We don't even care about marriage anymore.
No, brother. As you read the statistics, the desire to marry is waning, and then the society has so decayed, especially the educational process or institution, and the product in terms of the caliber of people that's coming out, and the attack on the black male. You know, we're considered almost an endangered species, brother. So the number of men that are upwardly mobile in terms of education and employment, the numbers are very, very much less than those of our sisters. So many of our sisters are successful. They matriculated through colleges and universities, and according to this world standards, and I'm qualifying this, according to this world standards, they're faring well and much better than brothers. So them outnumbering us as well makes it difficult for them to find a suitable mate amongst our brothers. So now, brother, I think it was part 2, or was it may have been part 4 of the series, I presented an article where a brother had wrote an article and asked the question, why more black women should consider marrying white men. And one of the reasons for that was it's difficult for sisters to find a suitable mate, you know, in terms of, you know, the level of attainment where she's concerned educationally and, you know, professionally. It's hard for her to find her peer amongst her group or amongst black men. So you have people writing articles, well, this is one of the reasons she should consider marrying outside of her race. And you're seeing a lot more of that. Particularly and black women historically were less likely than black men to marry outside of her race. You know, but because, you know, of the environment, circumstances, and that kind of thing, you see that. So part of what this has to do with this series, it's dealing with, how can I say? It's more designed to prick the conscience of us as men. Because when you say, well, our sisters don't feel protected, that's an indictment on us. You know? And the things happening in the community, the waywardness of our children, that's an indictment on us. Because we went and laid down and had all these babies. You know, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said this. He said, there's no such thing as a no good woman. I know some people going, what? No.
I know plenty of them.
But he said, wherever you find a no good woman, a no good man, somewhere made her that way. And when I first heard that, I did the same thing. I was like, what? But as I thought and began to study, I go, wow, he's right. Wherever you find a no good woman, a no good man, somewhere made her that way. And of course, we don't have time to plumb the depth of that here, but go and look at it yourself. It's women are attracted to men of substance, even if he's a bad man. I mean, big money drug dealers, he's doing something, although it's negative, but he's ruling something. So some of our sisters are attracted to that. And then you have men that are doing it in the opposite direction. But a man sitting around doing nothing, you know, can't do much for a woman who wants to go somewhere. But you know, brother, the family unit in this series that we're working on, we've done 4 parts, and we're at the 5th part, which will deal with nation. We're finishing. We did 2 parts on the woman. You know, parts 1, 2 was God and family, and then we zoomed in within the family, because family is the cornerstone of nation, and we zoomed in on the woman who is the cornerstone of the family. And we looked at, because in truth, the woman, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us, she is the key to the kingdom of God. As she was the key to the making of this world. She was the one that the focus was on. The focus was on the woman. If you remember, Willie Lynch, once the man was broken, he gave particular attention to the female and her young offspring. Because if he breaks the woman and make her his, she will in turn break the offspring. And she will raise them according to Mr. Lynch's writings. And some say this is not real, but look, if the effect is real, then the cause is real. So, and I leave that right there for those who understand. But in that condition, with her man broken, and her made to depend on him, and made to fear him, she will raise her male and female children in reverse roles. And if you look at our young boys today, Brother James, you know, man, and I see this more in the profession that I've been in for the past 30 years in law enforcement. When we used to get in trouble as little boys, and they said they was gonna call somebody, who did you not want them to call?
Your daddy.
No, but more than your daddy, but
your mother.
Your mother. Don't call my mother. We used to actually say that. Don't call my mother. You know, you knew dad was gonna find out, but don't call mama. But these young brothers today, the first thing out of their mouth is, call my mama. Why is that? Well, one, because ain't no daddy there at the house. A lot of times. At least we had a father to call. But most of these young brothers don't call, or call my mother. And the young girls say, don't call my mama, because I don't want her in my business. So that's kind of a reversed mentality that I've been noticing, you know, out on the street.
Well, brother, you mentioned the statement that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad made. There's no such thing as a no good woman unless you find a no good man who made her that way. Well, she wouldn't be no good if we would obey God from the beginning and till the ground.
Right.
So when he placed us in the garden, which we can see as our home, our nation, man is given the authority to till it, fertilize it, cultivate it. So when we fail to perform our duty, then what we see in our community is the result of our failure. Brother Sharif said this, that when he had a time to counsel with the minister about marriage, he said the minister told him, and hope I'm quoting Brother Student Minister Sharif, right? He said 90% of the problems in the marriage is the man. Now he said he had to wrestle with that thought and drive around the city before he went home. So when he said that, I asked myself the question, whoa, 90%? Well, if you are the one who tilled the ground, what do you mean till the ground? How do you till a woman? How do you till the family? How do you cultivate the family in a loving way? And
not like a tyrant.
Yeah, because if we don't understand the word control, we run away from that word control because it sounds like we're going to be tyrant. Sit down, shut up, and do what I tell you to do.
No, sir.
No.
We don't do that.
You can control somebody with love.
In fact, brother, you say that. Love is the creative force out of which, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us, that God created heaven and earth and all that we see. Where there is love, there must be duty. You can't say you love someone and you're not dutiful. Love is a verb in the context of male-female relationships. So if love has to be demonstrated. Duty is love demonstrated. So in order to begin to exercise control, the number one ingredient is love. And in that love, there must be duty. You know, unconditional duty. I mean, we as Muslims are taught that men are the maintainers of women. It's not predicated upon whether or not you're mad at her. When you say your wedding vows, I've learned, this was after I got married, I learned deeper. You made a commitment to God that you're going to husband that woman. A husband is one who is responsible or cares for that which is not his. Well, whose woman is she? She's God's woman. Well, if you say you love God and you are the caregiver of one of his creatures in his creation, and you say you love God, then how can you not love your wife and say you love God?
So what you're saying is, if you love God, then you're going to look to him for instructions.
You look for him for guidance. When you get in trouble, I'll say it like this. As men, and this is something that I've learned, brother. When I have trouble, I don't go and complain to nobody. I've learned that. I think Allah, I'm learning it. I'm learning it even deeper. Like a woman is dependent on a man to make her secure, a man is dependent on God to make him secure. So his complaints, his fears, his insecurities, we take them to our Creator in prayer. You know, it's okay. You may confide in another brother for advice. Well, why is that important? Because when you make God the source or the number one person you take your problems and your concerns to, the woman in your life sees that as strength. Because when you come out of the solitude of I got a prayer room in my house. And when you come out of the solitude of that, brother, and you bring resolutions to problems in the house, it allows your mate to look up to you. Because a woman has to look up to you, brother. That's part of loving you. You know, because a woman, her nature is to be made secure. Because naturally, we are her maintainer. She is to give us peace and quietude of mind. But this world has taught our women to be very mouthy and overly opinionated. I know I'm in trouble now. You know, but to the point that a lot of times, brother, it's disrespectful. And she think her power is in her ability to go toe-to-toe with a man. When the truth of the matter is, a woman's power is in her femininity. It's kind of like jujitsu. If we push, all she got to do is pull. If we pull, all she got to do is push. And it'll keep us off balance if she understood. That's jujitsu. And it's the same for us. But, you know, there's a lot more to it, brother. But we have to get back to the original family unit. We have to get back to God's formula for what a family should be. And until we do that, the problems we see are going to persist. It's just that simple. But that's the base of it. And when you begin to explore the branches and the many connections that you will find as it relates to the original family unit, man, it's amazing. You know, it's really a lot more than a 5-part. You can write volumes on family, the original family unit, and its importance in the nation building process.
Brothers and sisters, just now tuning in to the Self-Improvement Basis for Community Development Talk Show. We are Facebook Live, and I'm sitting here with my brother, my friend since kindergarten.
Long time, brother.
Student Minister Abdul Shahid Muhammad. He is the Holly Spring representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and we're touching on this very sensitive matter, the Black family crisis, as it relates to his lecture series, the original family unit, God, family, then nation.
That's right.
And my brother, brother, we've talked about a lot of the problems, but there is a cure out there from the original man.
That's right.
I have this book right here. I hope I don't make a mistake, called An Original Man.
Yes, sir.
I think it's time for us to take a look at the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad as it relate to his representative, also the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, in our midst today. We say Islam comes after everything else has failed, but Islam comes as a form of medicine. When God came to us, and I can quote the Self-Improvement Study Guide, in Study Guide number 9, our intimate relationship with Rabbi Amin. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan writes, he said, whenever man loses the ability to read Allah, God will
in nature,
in that which is around him or her, then it is incumbent upon Almighty God Allah to raise from us a messenger, an apostle, even a Christ. And in that man, he put medicine. You know, we can't say God didn't see us coming here in 1555, stripped of our names, our language, our culture, and our God. Our family structure being destroyed, the man being destroyed, the woman being destroyed, and being made other than ourselves.
In fact, Brother James, if the prophets didn't see that, they cannot even be considered prophets, because if the Bible begins in Genesis and teaches to the end of this world system of things, and the prophets are caused by God to see to the end of this world, as the book of Revelation talks about the end, right? Well, if the prophets saw to the end, and we're still here, did they see what happened to us? Did they see America in Scripture? Had to.
You know,
so the answers to our problems is right in the books. We've just had a terrible teacher, and this is what made that man, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, so important. And I think their take on family, and which is not theirs, is from God Himself, and will go to serve us well if we would just give ear to it. And those who are our open enemies, they understand that, and that's why they work so hard to keep us away from a man like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Brother, in this study guide, the Self-Improvement, the Basis for Community Development, that came from God through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, there is a letter. And that letter states, he said, Master Rob Muhammad came to North America in 1930, July 4th. And he set up classes to bring about a new type of human being. When you look at the condition of black people and what happened to us, being stripped of our names, our language, our culture, and our God, and sold into slavery, then the average prophet, I shouldn't say average, but the prophets, couldn't deal with this problem, because this problem creates such a darkness compared to out of which Allah created Himself. The darkness of our mind. The Bible said this is a people who walk in darkness, gross darkness they walk. So God came to us and He set up classes. These classes are a cure to the black family crisis. I want you to speculate on those classes, particularly the class for the men, the mighty FY class. And I know you can't touch too much on the MGT class because you're not in the GT. Excuse me, in the MGT
Might bring the
class.
sisters on and tell y'all about that.
But these classes are set up to deal with these issues that we're having in the black community. Getting a tired tongue now, particularly the black family. How can these classes help the black community?
The men's class? Well, it's manhood training. In the FOI class, we begin by understanding who we are in the, how can I say, within the ladder or the hierarchy, for lack of a better way of expressing it, of the human family. We are taught we are the original human being, the original man, okay? Now, last week I showed an article from 2005 Washington Post, whereby they said that there was a time when there were no such thing as blue-eyed people on the earth. You know, so the enemy, he showed you black folk with blue eyes, you know. But anyway, when we learn that we are the original human being through which all human beings come, then all of the science and the writings of our open enemies that teach other than that become suspect. And it leads to a lot of more questions about self. Because once you begin to get a thorough knowledge of self, you know, it's akin to having the knowledge of God. And you begin to develop a healthy respect and love of self. And when you look at brothers or other people, human beings, black people that look like you, when you begin to respect your life, you develop a healthier respect for the life of another black man. Because the number one problem in the black community, particularly among men, is self-hatred. You know, we find it very easy, man, to hurt one another as black men. Well, what is that? Why is it so easy, man, for us? And you can hear us, man. You hear brothers in a fight, the N-word be flying as he punching them. You know, what is that? That's a self-hatred that persists due to the absence of a proper knowledge of self, which will bring out of us or bring up in us a healthy love and respect for self. So in FOI class, we'll call the FOI the fruit of Islam. It is the name given to the military training of the men that belong to Islam in North America, okay? When I began, and let me just testify, when I began to study for myself and begin to plumb the depth of what it means as it relates to what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad or what the Honorable Louis Farrakhan was teaching from his teaching, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, of the black man, our position, our history. And when you understand our history, not just in Africa, he took us all the way back to the beginning. And we like to stop at Africa. But black people predate the term Africa. We predate the naming, whoever named the continent. We predate that. So what was that part of the world and what would we call prior to that? We go back into the thousands, millions really, and even trillions of years. So teaches the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and science is every day verifying those facts.
That's right.
But when you learn that, when I learned it, brother, I had to reconfigure my thinking about myself as a black man. And by extension, I reconfigured how I looked at other brothers. And the tendency to be hateful of self and disrespectful of another black man began to leave me. You know, and that's the best way that I can describe it, excuse me, for my personal experience. There's a lot more that goes into it, but the way we're taught, the responsibility of when you understand your responsibility to the female, first your responsibility to God and to yourself, and it developed in me a self-love and a self-respect. You know, you dress up, you know. This is deeper than just putting on a suit and a bow tie, because this is just an outward manifestation of the cleanup that goes on within. when I learned the proper use of self and the proper use of my life, when I learned and understood that I shouldn't pollute this temple. You know, I said, all of us talk about believing in God, but the place that God wants to dwell is in you. But you have to clean the place up. If you want God in your life, and if you say you love him, well, he wants to dwell in us. He ain't in the sky somewhere waiting. He wants to put his mind in us. Well, two things can't occupy the same space at the same time. And we got this world's perception of God, which is false. So we have to disabuse ourselves of that perception to take on the reality of God. And in my humble view, the proper perception of God is being and has been taught by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan according to the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Somebody wants to give a shout out to you on Facebook, so I have to do it. You know, like Tom Joyner used to say, we don't give shout out, but we do. Our brother Gregory Muhammad,
Brother Gregory.
Remember in Indianapolis, peace, my brother.
Brother Gregory. See, I came up, brother. I watched them Hall brothers, man, but they were ex-Hall then. Them three. T to the Y, Brother James and Brother Gregory, man. They was in the mosque when I got there. So those brothers were some good examples growing up and coming up in Mosque number 55.
And Brother Student Minister Chad Muhammad.
Brother Chad.
Peace, my brother, Brother Chad.
He has a great podcast, by the way. He and Brother Student Minister James, isn't it? And it's a sister that I can't remember her name, but they have a wonderful program as well.
Well, brother, in closing, tell us more. Tell us how we can get in touch with you through the study group in Holly Springs, Mississippi. Get more information about the lecture series, and really, brother, invite the people to come out.
Yes, sir.
To hear more of the life-giving teaching of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad as is represented by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I really think, you know, when I put this on Facebook, I said we need to talk. You know, and it's a very touchy matter because everybody have their own definition of family. This world has severely contaminated us. And black folks, we need to know we in this world, but we can't be of this world. And we in America just as a fulfillment of prophecy.
This world is dying, brother.
It's dying fast.
It's dying a natural death. But in terms of the I don't even publish my lectures, brother. I just do them, and
that's why I drag you on the show, brother.
You started recording them. I never had the thought to do it, honestly, brother. But of course, we have to record them now as students in the ministry. But we are, of course, I'm in Holly Springs, Mississippi. Holly Springs, Mississippi Study Group in Holly Springs, Mississippi is just south of Memphis, maybe about 40 miles south of Memphis. We're located at 165 North Memphis Street in Holly Springs. Our meeting days and times are the same as local mosques. We meet Sunday mornings at 10 o'clock. Our doors open at 9:30. We have our men's class Monday nights at 7:30. There at 165 North Memphis Street. We are a commuter study group, meaning most of us live outside of the city. We have Zoom classes on Wednesday and Friday nights, self-improvement study classes. And our sisters have class, currently they're having class with the sisters here in Memphis at 873 Vance Avenue, Mosque number 55. Of course, this coming weekend is what we need to tell people about.
Go ahead.
This coming weekend, we are throughout the Nation of Islam going to be commemorating the 29th anniversary of the historic Million Man March, the Day of Atonement, Reconciliation, and Responsibility. Long live the spirit of the Million Man March. Each local mosque or study group will be having a day of events starting in earnest Saturday. And in Holly Springs, our sisters will be in Holly Springs, man. They've been granted permission to have MGT class in Holly Springs. That's gonna be crazy. We will be there on deck bright and early, about 7:30. Make sure we'll be there for them. And after they adjourn in class, we have a day of events, and we're having what we have called the Holly Springs Family Reunion. And this was an idea that our student Regional Commander Abdul Sharif Muhammad, as we like to call him. I got that from Student Minister Abram. But Student Regional Minister Abdul Sharif Muhammad out of Atlanta, he gave us the idea of, going to your archives and, find those lively stones, and take them back to the Lord when they first received them, and have just a family reunion. Mosque family reunion, study group family reunion. So we've done just that. We went into our archives and we've contacted, and I've got a couple of calls from brothers and sisters said that they're going to come out. So Saturday, starting right after MGT class, we're going to have a family reunion. We're going to have a cookout. We got a bouncy that we've got on deck for the children and the families of the believers. And some of our guests have been invited out. And we're just going to fellowship.
And be family.
We're going to be family because it's a family reunion. And we're going to reflect on the Million Man March. And there'll be a plenary session. There will be webcast coming out of the National Center and inside of the mosque. We're going to be doing it on our grounds right there in Holly Springs. We'll be able to go inside and sit and take in the plenary session and other events that'll be taking place in Chicago that Saturday. And we'll be going from right after our sisters' class up until around 5 or 6 o'clock. Then we'll have a little dinner. Then we'll break. And then Sunday, we'll be back in Holly Springs. And instead of our regular 10 o'clock a.m. meeting time, we will be meeting at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time for the keynote address out of Chicago via webcast by the Student National Assistant of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Student Minister Ishmael Muhammad. And if you've been listening at him, good God Almighty, you're in for a treat. He has words for us from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So come down to Holly Springs. If you're in Holly Springs or Marshall County, you're invited for both days. Come on by.
All right. Brothers and sisters alike, thank you once again for tuning in to the Self-Improvement Basis for Community Development Talk Show. I'm your weekly host, Brother James Muhammad. We're on every Monday, Comcast Cable, Memphis, Tennessee, Channel 17. And we're on Facebook Live. So if you have any questions, please hit us up on Facebook Live. We thank you for tuning in on Facebook. If we made any mistakes, please charge it to the mind and not the heart. We mean not to offend anyone, but we got to get to the root of the problem. And if you want to get to the root of the problem, solve the problem, let's go where it starts and who is the originator of the family, which is God himself.
Yes, sir.
So if you have any comments, please don't hesitate. Go ahead and comment. You can't offend us.
No.
But I thank you, brother, for coming back on the show
thank
again.
Thank you for allowing me. And let me say this, brother.
Yes, sir.
To the audience. Truth is going to always offend those who are not only in opposition to the truth, but they persist in their opposition to the truth. So there's no way to tell the truth in a world based on lies and not offend somebody.
That's right, because
but that's not the intent.
That's right. Truth, tradition doesn't equal truth.
That's right.
It's just a tradition. Something you've been doing for a long time.
That's right.
So, brothers and sisters, thank you for tuning in. Until next week, peace be unto you.